Meditation doesn't sound like a very probably deep new subject for us here, but sometimes we need to stop and look at things and focus on things that we take for granted. And meditation is a part of this community. It's a part of our service. It's a part of about everything that we do here is some form of meditation. And I find that people get too used to doing certain things until it becomes more reactionary rather than being mindful or proactive. So I just thought it was a good time to bring us back to the importance of meditation, not only collectively as a community, as a group, but individually in our lives. So let's see how this all comes out. There was so much on the subject of meditation, it's overwhelming. So let's see how Spirit wants to present it to us this morning. I call this the practice of meditation because meditation is not something you just learn, it's something you have to do. You can't just decide I'm going to play a piano and go take one lesson and you become a piano player. If you don't practice and grow and learn, you're not going to do it. And same way with meditation. It's not an event. It's not just a thing to do, but it's practicing mindfulness between you and the higher part of yourself. Call it the divine, call it God, call it Christ consciousness, call it whatever you choose to call it. But that part of ourselves that oftentimes during the day we are disconnected from. And that we find ourselves completely overwhelmed with lower emotions and feelings and circumstances that often knock us out consciously of being mindful. So practicing meditation. Meditation is a mental as well as a physical course of action that a person uses to learn how to step back and observe the very busy part of their mind. All of the thoughts that are streaming continuously all the time. I think one reason that a lot of people have backed up from meditation is they think that meditation is always about controlling the mind. And I don't think it's about wrestling with the mind and trying to control the mind. I think it is just remembering who we are in the midst of the mind. One thing that we have found in heart math is that we have found out not only is there a little bit of a brain in the heart, but there's a little bit of a heart in the brain. That the brain has a heart of its own, and that the heart has a thinking process, a little brain in itself. So we want to connect those, and that no better way than through meditation. So we want to become a place in which we so practice this idea of observation, playing the observer, the observer. The most simple illustration I can give you is if you remember back when we went to movie theaters and saw movies, but now we see them at home and stream them. But if you get into a movie sometime, you can really get into a movie. If it's a very frightening movie, you can get into it so much that your body thinks it's real. And it'll change its heart rhythm, its blood pressure. Perspiration can even change. Everything can change to something you're looking at that's not even real. But the body will believe it is real and react as though it was real. So just imagine being in one of these. In fact, I watched a movie the other day. I don't know why I did it, but I got drawn into it, and it was pretty scary movie. But I got into it, and I was like feeling all the emotions that one would feel watching the suspense of when they're going to jump out or show up or who's going to do what. But the thing was, the movie ended. It ended. It actually said, "The end." And when it was over, I came to myself. as the person sitting in a chair watching a movie. That I'm not the movie. I am none of the characters in the movie, but I so associated myself with the storyline and with the actors that a part of me believed it. And we talk about that a lot. We talk about how this part of the mind that we call our ego, or whatever you choose to call it, is something that makes us think we are the players on the stage. You know, Shakespeare said that life is like players on the stage, playing different roles and parts. And oftentimes we forget and think we are these roles. Sometimes we think the only thing we are is a mother, or a father, or a husband, or a wife, or a partner. Or we think we're somebody's sister or somebody's brother. And we think that's all we are. That's all we are. I think you mothers here, for instance, I'll pick on you for just a moment, but I think at this point in life when the kids have grown and moved out and whatever, and you've had to kind of redefine yourself, some of you, that have kids that have moved on, and you found yourself not every day in the role of being mother. I mean, you're always mother, but you're not playing the role of being mother. And you've had to kind of redefine yourself. What am I going to do? And you come back to the fact that you were something before a mother. You were a self. You were a woman. You were many things before you became that. And I think that's what we have forgotten. We've gotten so connected to the drama. I call it the melodrama of life. Now, the only way to keep a melodrama alive is you got to have three major parts or roles. You have to have the victim, always. You have to have the hero, the savior, something to save you. And you have to have the villain. And if you stop and think how that we cast these people throughout our life and not even realize at a subconscious level that we have to be careful about how the ego attracts people into our life versus how the Spirit attracts people into our life. Spirit attracts people into our life for co-creative purposes, that we grow and mature with one another. But those that the ego brings in is for the purpose of separation and lack and neediness all the time. So as we move out of this and decide that we were not the villain, we were not the hero, nor we the victim, but we were in the audience observing all of this. So to me, meditation is being able to connect enough to the silent observer, Deepak Chopra calls it, the silent observer. I have to give honor to Deepak Chopra back in early 1990s when I was really taking meditation seriously. And meditation can be a challenge if you really don't understand the different degrees of meditation. But if you only think that meditation is getting quiet and stilling the mind, it becomes a real challenge to do that, as I said, because the more you resist something, the more it becomes stronger. So the more you try to control those thoughts that are going all the time, trust me, the stronger those thoughts will become to you. So it's not about that. But he said something, and I wanted to share it with you, but he said, meditation is learning to how to slip through the gaps between your thoughts. I don't know, I just liked the sound of that. I thought it was really cool. That even I'm saying words, these words are ending and the new words beginning, and there is this still point. Your brain's not catching it. If I had a pendulum and it swung this way, you would never see it, but at somewhere it went into still point or it wouldn't come back this way. If it didn't, it'd just keep going around and around and around. So it's got to go into still point to come back this way. So our consciousness is full of still points. I call them still points of grace. grace. Because it's in the still point that you can really change a lot of things in that time. So we need to learn how to practice to be sensitive as the observer. So to me, this is what meditation is. It is practicing observing. I saw an example the other day. There's a wonderful little series on Netflix called Headspace, if you've heard of Headspace at all, but it's just about meditation, the simplicity of it. But he was just saying, if you were just sitting on a meadow, in a field, in front of an interstate, and the interstate cars are going and coming and coming and going, and you're just observing the cars coming and going, that's fine. But if you got out there in the interstate and started to stop the cars, it'd run over you. You can't do it. And that's what I think people do a lot of times with meditation. They try to step in to where all of those race thoughts, monkey thoughts they call them, are constantly going, and try to stop them, and they get run over by it. So they think, I just can't meditate. This is not my thing. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to still my mind. And then we shut down. And that's what the ego wants us to do, is to shut down. As in everything else, there's many shades to meditation, many ways to meditate. For me, and for Tim also, it happened that we both, in 1990, began to look into something called transcendental meditation. It's called TM. It's an old method that was brought to the West back in the 60s. And it is simple in the fact that you go to someone, I guess, that is an official in transcendental meditation, and they give you a mantra. A mantra is a word that means nothing. It's important. It means nothing, because if it has a meaning, the brain will get involved. If there's a meaning of a sound, it becomes a definition of some kind. So it's important to have a mantra that is a word or a sound. It can be in another language, it can be Sanskrit. It can be anything that the brain has not created brain cell for. Okay? But once they give that to you, you never speak it outside of yourself. I don't know what Tim's is. He doesn't know what mine is. I've never spoken it outside of myself for 31 years. But I have a mantra. And that works for me often, many times, that I just begin saying the mantra, the word. And that becomes, now, I've practiced it so much, it becomes a trigger to my mind, like, uh-oh, I might as well just give in, because we're going into meditation. That's one way to do it. It's not the only way to do it, but it's a way that basically works for me. We mostly understand meditation, I have to say, due to the contribution of Buddhism. Now, a lot of you don't know much about Buddhism, I'm sure, and you do not have to be a Buddhist to meditate. And that's the thing about meditation. It has outgrown all religions and all schools of spiritual thought. People are meditating in corporations. People are meditating everywhere. Mindfulness has reached out beyond all the boundaries of religion, business, etc. Because they're finding there is benefits to meditation. Physical benefits. Meditation can change and regulate your blood pressure, your heartbeat, circulation, the serotonin levels, and other chemical levels of your body can be regulated merely by meditation, and especially meditation through breath work. In Buddhism, the person meditating is not trying to get into a hypnotic state or even contract angels or any supernatural entity. In Buddhism, meditation involves merely the merging of body and mind as one unit. And this is mostly what we're teaching on, among many things, on Wednesday, but what started out to be is that we're in a shift of moving from the body, mind, spirit paradigm into everything is energy. We could say it, we're moving from water molecules at a certain temperature as steam, at a lower temperature as water, and as ice. It's all water molecules. The only thing that makes it different, a different form, is the temperature. So the body, mind, and spirit are not separate. They're just forms of the same thing due to frequency and vibration. So as we're moving to that, we're finding a whole new way of healing that we have never had before. In the old, it was fix you, you're broken. In the new paradigm, it is you have the intelligence to self-regulate and self-heal yourself by remembering who you were created to be as a whole being. See? The other comes from lack. I don't have it. I don't have health because I'm sick. This says that I have thoughts that has made me believe I am sick. And through that lens, I see myself as ill. But when I take the lens off, I realize I'm whole. Great question asked to the man by the teacher. It's a great story. It was a story about a very blessed pool, the pool of Bethesda in Siloam. This pool was anointed and blessed with angelic beings that would go down, and all the sick, diseased people would come down, and the angels would come down and bless the waters, and people would be immediately healed. Miracles took place. Crippled walked, blind saw, except one guy. This one guy, for years and years and years, every time it was time for the healing, went down there and he got nothing. Nothing. Everybody else was getting it, but not him. But little did he know something greater was coming down the corridor of his mind. The Bible says Jesus was walking down the path toward him. And I want you to know there's a Christ presence that's heading toward you to be made conscious. And when it became conscious to him, it wasn't, I'm going to fix you, you're broken. The question was, wilt thou be made whole? God had something greater than fixing somebody because they couldn't walk or they couldn't see. Christ said, I'm bringing wholeness to you. I'm bringing you to a place where you don't even need to be healed, because I did not create you sick. I did not create you with disease. I did not create you with lack. I did not create you with a disposition toward any particular genetic disease that have come down through your ancestry. I'm here to remind you, will you let me make you whole? Remember who you are in this moment. Meditation is a time to remember what we forget in most parts of the day. Most parts of the day we're on the stage being the mother, being the dad, being the brother, being the sister, being all of these things, being a Democrat, being a Republican, being black, being white. I mean, all this stuff that's going on the world stage. Not just America, but the world stage itself is nothing but role-playing. We're not seeing each other, we just see the mask that we wear, the costume that we put on every day. It's not just these masks. These masks cover up the mask. And you know what the word is? It's persona. Your persona, which we get the word personality. Everybody has a unique personality based upon the roles that they believe themselves to be. We are not a personality. We are a personification of one. Individualized. I'm not an individual. This is an individual. There's nobody like David. There's nobody like Cindy, etc. That's our personal persona that we put out. But underneath all of that, if we allow ourselves to be naked, excuse me, nakedness in the Bible doesn't mean take off your physical clothes. It means take off your masks, take off your persona, take off your labels, and stand in authenticity. That's nakedness. Be real. Quit trying to hide between your words. Quit trying to hide between your human attributes of personality. People are not what they seem to be. People who seem to be strong and people that seem to have a strong personality to be around are sometimes some of the most beautiful hearts that are out there. And vice versa. It is so important that we tune ourselves to become extremely discerning of one another, to see ourselves first of all differently, and then see each other differently, and see the world differently. Practice. Meditation is the exact practice of that. In most general definitions, meditation is a way of observing the mind without judgment until it becomes peaceful and focused, and the meditator becomes aware. Aware. So the purpose of meditation is to observe. Observe. The more that we can practice, and I'm not saying it's easy because we're very reactionary people. When people say something we don't like or push a button in us, we react back. We still believe in this thing of rendering evil for evil and good for good. But I keep saying to this group, and when I say this group, I mean this level of consciousness that we represent here at HeartLight, which is a consciousness all over the world of new thought, metaphysical, spiritual people. Somebody has to come to a place in which we stop this cycle of reacting, where we can find a still point before we react and give back what we think somebody is giving us and stop the cycle in that moment and come to themselves. You know what that's called? Awakening. Awake, thou that sleepest. Awakening is ability to really see what's going on rather than what we think emotionally is going on. Meditation is a practice of tuning ourselves. So the meditation is a place to practice observation. When you truly meditate, you can give yourself an inner vacation. I know right now we're somewhat limited due to this virus. We've been put into these boundaries and limitations of where we can go and what we can do, and even if we do, we're still within these limitations. But not in here. The door. We have a door to dimensions in us. They're proving that in your brain, in your mind, are at least 9 to 11 dimensions right now. And we're only living on the third one most of the time. So what is the way to open that door so that I have options? See what I'm saying? If I'm working in the ego system and I'm knocked out consciously, I'm going to react back the way it's mirrored to me. You've done this to me, and I'll do this back to you. I hope you hear what I'm saying. Somebody's got to step out and say, wait a minute, this game is over. There was a book very popular probably the first metaphysical book I didn't know was metaphysical back in the 60s, called The Game of Life. It was just a little book, but it was popular. In life, every day you get up and you play the game of life. Every day it's a game. How are you going to play it? You going to play it smart or not? I think I've told you this before, but I remember as a young kid growing up on my street, so thankful back in those days that we could play outside and have games. But there was a game that I remember, and I was the younger kid on the block. So, you always get picked on when you're the younger one of everybody else. But I remember the game had something to do with they drew a box out of chalk. And you had teams, and somebody that lost the thing got in the box, and if somebody from your team could get to you and tag you, you're released out of the box, and they took your place before the other team tagged them to get to you. So I'm in the box at some point, and it's getting later. You can smell dinners cooking around the neighborhood, whatever, and it's getting later. And the kids decide to play a trick on me. And everybody went home and left me in the box. Now, I'm young. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be validated. So I stayed in that box for a long time. Then a thought came to me. I'm only in this box as long as I play the game. Because really, there is no box. There's just some lines that have been drawn for me, and I decided I don't want to play the game anymore. Now, the game held me from not crossing those boundaries. But when I decided to not play the game, the boundaries meant nothing to me. And I got out of it and went home. That's simple. But sometimes we do the same thing. We let people in our lives, we let society, culture draw lines for us, and then we play the game. Somebody's got to say the end of this movie. The end of this game. I'm going home to myself. I'm going to be who I am. So let me say this to you. The key that unlocks the door to options of dimensions is imagination. That's the key that opens the door. Is imagination. And imagination cannot be held within chalk marks or any other boundaries that have been drawn for you. You can imagine anything. If you want to go and miss the beach, you can open that door and you can create that experience and go to the beach in your mind. I do think imagination is a very powerful thing. And meditation is so powerful in this time that we are living because it gives us that sense of inner freedom that we don't have out here. So what it is that you want and desire for your life in meditation, contemplation, please do it. Let me just talk about 4 different types of meditation: concentrative, generative, receptive, and reflective. And I'll just give a line or two about each one of these. Mindfulness always plays a part in meditation, which we talked about just a few weeks ago. Concentrative is you focus your attention on an object and gradually you become calmer and more concentrated. It could be the flame of a candle. Sometimes you don't always have to close your eyes to have a meditation. You can meditate on something. You can meditate on the leaves blowing in the wind of the trees outside your window. But an object And as you focus on that object, you become softer in your vision. It's called soft vision. To the point that you kind of it gets blurry to you almost, because you're not at some point so on the object, but you're almost seeing beyond the object. Or you're seeing the object as less than density. Generative. An example of generative practice is the developing of loving kindness, a meditation that helps the person meditating to develop an attitude of loving kindness using memory. So when things happen in your life and you lose that connection of love with someone or something, this is saying meditate and go back to something and a time that when you did love something. Recapture the feeling and attitude of love that you've stored away in your memory. And then bring that feeling back and attach it to how you're seeing the circumstance in your life at the time inside of yourself. And I've given you one of the greatest tools, or Course in Miracles did as far as I'm concerned, and that is when you feel attacked, know and see it as a call for love. Remember that. It's a mantra. All attack is a call for love. The more attacked you feel and see someone in your life, the more love they're asking for. What do you do at that moment? You come to yourself. You realize I do not have to be knocked out consciously in this moment, but I choose to be the higher self. I choose to be the better me. This is why things are escalating on the world, is because we keep passing back to each other the same thing. I hate you, you hate me. It's just escalated. And my vision is that this enough group of people, I'm going to call them, that are not so out there in the world, such as people like ourselves. We're not elevation. We're not a super church of thousands of members and whatever. We're just a little group, and there's other little groups here in Charlotte that could connect if they would, if we all would. I don't know why we don't, but we don't really connect either. And still we'd be a small group compared to all of the religious churches and membership in Charlotte. It'd still be small. But that's all over the world. Unity, for instance, is all over the world. Daily Word that you heard from today has reached all over the world. My mother read Daily Word. She had no idea. Probably that it was from some metaphysical group. But she liked what it said. It has crossed boundary after boundary with people. But here's the good news. I believe there is enough. May not be the most number, but there is enough for critical mass to be reached. I think there is enough souls on this planet with contracts to be here at this time to tip the scale of mass consciousness from fear to love, from war to peace, from division and separation to unity and oneness. I believe that. In fact, I almost know that inside myself. I was told that in a deep meditation in the 80s, that for the first time, all those that have made a contract for the next leap of humanity is living on the planet in this generation. How are we going to get together? Maybe not in space and time, but we can meet in meditation. How many groups are meditating today? All New Thought churches have meditated and have a meditation. We meet through meditation and create a field of consciousness a mass Christ consciousness emerging in the human consciousness, seeding it, and bringing forth the fruit of the love and the light and any other attribute we call God. Meditation is therapeutic, it is spiritual, it is every level you can imagine. I don't know if you're meditating on a personal level every day. TM, we were supposed to meditate 20 minutes twice a day. Of course, a miracle says, just give me 5 minutes and a little willingness and I'll change the world. So I don't know. I don't think you have to sit cross-legged. I don't think you have to breathe any particular way. I think that there is a way, just make yourself comfortable and focus inwardly. And if you have to watch those cars on the expressway, let them go. Don't get out there and try to stop them. Let them go and realize I am the observer. And by being the observer, I can shift my perceptions, my consciousness. I choose in this moment to see something different.